Thaddius Witmore hated people, not in a loud, angry way, but in a quiet, deep way that had grown over the years like rust on a forgotten gate. His ranch was far from town, out where the wind carried dust and silence. He lived alone with his horse, his rifle, and his pain. And he liked it that way. 3 years ago, his life had ended in one night of horror. That night, a group of strangers came to his home. They were drunk, lost, and dangerous. They broke into his house looking for food, for money, anything they could steal. Thaddius had tried to stop them. He fought like a wild man. But it wasn't enough. Margaret, his sweet wife, had screamed as she was taken from him. Emma, their little girl, had cried in fear. And just like that, they were both gone, taken by the same kind of people he now swore to never forgive. Since that night, no one came near his land. His fences were covered in warning signs. No trespassing. Private property. Keep out. Everyone in the nearest town knew Thaddius was not someone to mess with. People said he once shot a man in the shoulder just for crossing the fence to hunt rabbits. That story was true, and the bullet was a warning. Next time, he promised, it would be the heart. Thaddius had built a wall around his heart, stronger than any fence. He didn't smile. He didn't talk. He didn't trust. His land was his world, and it was closed off to everyone. But everything changed one hot afternoon. The sun was burning over the hills, and the dirt shimmered in the heat. Thaddius stood on his front porch, as he did most days, watching the horizon. That's when he saw it, dust rising in the distance, like a ghost creeping toward his land. He narrowed his eyes. His hand went to the rifle leaning beside the door. It was always loaded. As the dust cloud came closer, he saw them. Figures. 10 of them. All walking. Slowly. Carefully. Not men. Women. Their clothes were strange, soft and torn like silk. Their faces were sunburnt. Their steps weak. Foreign. Chinese, maybe. He didn't know, and he didn't care. His jaw tightened. They were walking straight toward his gate. Anger boiled in his chest. Who did they think they were? This wasn't a town. This wasn't a charity. This was his land, his rules. They reached the gate. The group stopped. One of them stepped forward. She was young, maybe in her 20s, but her eyes were older, full of pain, full of something that refused to break. Her hair was messy, her dress was stained with dirt, but her posture was strong. She raised her hands, palms open. "Please, sir," she said in broken English. "We need help. We have no place to go." Thaddius didn't blink. "Get off my land," he said flatly. The rifle didn't shake in his hands. He meant every word. Behind the brave girl, the other women huddled close together. They looked tired, scared. Some were so young, just teenagers. Their legs trembled from walking too far. Their lips were dry. One girl leaned on another for balance. "We work," the first girl said. "We cook. We clean. We no trouble." "I said leave," Thaddius snapped, stepping off the porch now. His boots hit the ground hard. 10 seconds, then I shoot. The women flinched, all except the first one. She didn't move. She looked into his eyes, and something strange happened. In her eyes, Thaddius saw something familiar. Not weakness, not begging, but sorrow, and a quiet strength. The kind that comes from surviving something terrible. "They come," she whispered. "Bad men. They chase us, they hurt us if they find." Thaddius felt a tight pain in his chest, a twist of something he didn't want to feel. Something like memory. Something like Margaret's last scream. He forced it down. "Should have thought of that before you came here," he muttered, raising the rifle a little higher. But she didn't back down. "Please," she said again. "We run. They buy us, lock us, hurt us." Behind her, one girl collapsed to her knees, crying in a language Thaddius didn't understand. The others comforted her quickly, whispering soft words, their faces full of fear. The leader stayed still. Her eyes stayed on Thaddius, not asking, begging. Suddenly, From the distance came the sound of hooves. Thundering. Fast. Thaddius turned his head. 6 riders. Closing in. The young woman's face changed. All the strength faded. Terror took over. She turned back to Thaddius. "Hide us," she said, voice shaking. "Please, they kill us." Thaddius looked at the women, looked at their faces, looked at the dust cloud getting closer. He felt Margaret's scream in his ears, Emma's small fingers in his memory, and before he could stop himself, the words came out. "The barn," he said. Her eyes went wide with surprise. "Go. Now. Stay low. Stay quiet." She didn't ask why. She shouted something in Chinese and the women ran. Fast. Quiet. They disappeared behind the house, heading for the barn. Only she stayed. "Why you help us?" she asked softly. Thaddius stared at her, rifle still in hand. He didn't know. Or maybe he did. "Just go," he said. She nodded, then ran, and Thaddius turned back to face the riders. Enemies were coming, but this time he wasn't alone. The riders came fast. Dust flew behind them like smoke as their horses rushed over the dry land. Thaddius Witmore stood on his porch, rifle in hand, eyes hard as stone. His heart beat heavy in his chest, but his hands didn't shake. He had hidden the women in the barn only minutes ago. 10 strangers, 10 broken souls, and now 10 lives depended on what he did next. The first rider came into full view, a tall man with a sharp face, a dirty hat, and a long scar running from his ear to the corner of his mouth. 5 other men followed behind him. All of them wore gun belts. All of them looked mean and full of bad intentions. Thaddius didn't move. The tall man pulled on the reins and stopped his horse a few steps from the porch. He took off his hat and wiped sweat from his brow. "Afternoon," he said with a cold smile. "Name's Crenshaw." Thaddius said nothing. "We're looking for something that don't belong to us no more," Crenshaw continued. "Maybe you've seen it." Thaddius's voice was like gravel. "What are you talking about?" 10 Chinese girls, Crenshaw said, leaning forward in the saddle. "Pretty little things, quiet types, ran off from where they were supposed to. Stay, heard they came this way." "I ain't seen no one," Thaddius lied. His face didn't move. His eyes didn't blink. Crenshaw's smile faded. "They're ours. Bought and paid for. Got the papers to prove it." Thaddius's hands tightened on the rifle. "They ain't yours anymore." There was a long silence. The wind blew dry across the yard. A hawk cried in the sky above. 5 of Crenshaw's men slowly placed their hands on their guns. It was a quiet threat, but Thaddius didn't back down. He stood like a man with nothing left to lose. Crenshaw narrowed his eyes. "Mind if we take a look around, just to be sure?" "I do mind," Thaddius said firmly. "You step 1 foot on my land and I promise you'll regret it." Crenshaw stared at him. Then he gave a low laugh. "You're making a mistake, old man." "Not the first," Thaddius replied, "but maybe the right one." Crenshaw turned his horse around. "We'll be back," he said coldly. "And next time we won't ask." The 6 men rode off. Dust rose behind them again as they disappeared into the hills. Thaddius waited until they were gone. Then he let out a long breath. He hadn't even realized he was holding it. He walked slowly to the barn. Inside it was quiet. Too quiet. 10 pairs of eyes stared at him from the shadows. Afraid. Waiting. "They're gone," he said. A soft sigh went through the room, like a single breath shared by 10 hearts. Li Wei, the brave woman who had spoken for the group, stepped forward. "Thank you," she whispered. Thaddius nodded. He placed the rifle against a bale of hay and sat down on a wooden crate. He looked at them now, really looked. They were so young, so fragile. Some were barely old enough to be called women. Their faces were tired, their clothes were ripped, some had bruises. One girl had scars on her wrists, thin and faded but painful to see. These weren't travelers. These weren't workers. These were prisoners who had escaped something evil. "Tell me what happened," Thaddius said quietly. Li Wei's hands trembled as she tried to explain. They take us from China. Promise good job, good life. We believe, we trust. She looked down, ashamed. But when we come, they lock us in house. Say no leave. Say we belong to them now. Men come. Pay money. Do bad things. She stopped. She couldn't say more. Tears filled her eyes. Another woman spoke, older, with strong eyes and a deep voice. One day, fire in kitchen, big fire, guards run, we take nothing, just go. For 3 days we walk, Li Wei added. Hide during day, run at night. They chase us with horses, with dogs. We were almost caught many times. Thaddius looked at the floor. His throat felt tight. He remembered his wife's scream. He remembered the cold hand of his little girl. He thought he had closed that part of his heart forever. But now it was open again. A soft voice broke the silence. One of the younger girls said something in Chinese. Li Wei translated. She say, if you give us back, we die. Thaddius looked at her. I won't. The girl began to cry. He stood and walked to the door. You'll stay here for now. I'll bring food, water, but you stay quiet. If they come back, we'll be ready. Li Wei stepped forward. Why you help us? He looked at her and said nothing for a moment. Then, in a quiet voice, he answered. Because once someone needed help from me and I failed. Li Wei nodded. She understood. Pain understood pain. That night, Thaddius didn't sleep. He sat on the porch watching the road. His rifle lay across his lap. The stars above blinked down like old eyes, and for the first time in years, the cold inside him started to melt. He was still angry, still broken. But now, he wasn't alone. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the hills, casting golden light across Thaddius Witmore's land. The air was cooler, but the memory of danger still hung heavy like dust in the wind. Thaddius stepped out of his house, rifle in hand as always, and looked toward the old barn. It stood quiet in the early light, but he knew the 10 women were inside, hiding, waiting, hoping. He walked across the yard and opened the barn door gently. Inside, the women were awake. Some sat against the walls while others helped each other, braid hair or clean their faces with a damp cloth. When they saw him, they all froze. But Thaddius didn't speak harshly. He didn't lift his rifle. He just set a basket on the ground, fresh bread, boiled eggs, and a jug of water. Li Wei stood up and came forward. Her eyes were tired, but they held more trust than the day before. Thank you, she said softly. Thaddius nodded. You all, right? He asked. Li Wei looked back at the others. We okay. We scared. But safe. For now. Thaddius sat on a bale of hay and leaned on his knees. He watched them eat in silence. They didn't waste a single crumb. Some smiled gently at each other. For the first time, there was a little peace in their faces. I got some clothes in the attic, Thaddius said. My wife's things. Maybe they'll fit. Li Wei blinked, surprised. You have wife? Had, he said. His voice went quiet. Long time ago. Li Wei didn't ask more. She understood some wounds didn't need to be opened again. Over. The next 2 days, the ranch changed. The women didn't just hide anymore, they helped. One girl swept the porch. Another mended a torn fence with wire and wood. 2 of them cleaned out the chicken coop. They worked with quiet hands and gentle smiles. And Thaddius watched them with a heart that didn't feel so hard anymore. He gave them names in his mind. The tall one, the quiet one, the one who laughed, the one who sang. But he also tried to learn their real names. It was hard, but he tried. Your name? He asked one day. The girl smiled shyly. My name is May. May, he repeated. Means what? Beautiful, she said with a soft giggle. He smiled too, just a little. It was the first time in years that his face remembered how to do that. Each night, Thaddius sat on the porch with his rifle. He watched the hills, watched the road. The riders hadn't come back yet, but he knew they would, and when they did, he'd be ready. One night, Leeway sat beside him. The stars were bright above, and the crickets sang in the grass. "You are good man," she said. "No," Thaddius answered. "Not always." "You are now," she replied gently. They sat in silence for a while. "I lost my family," he said quietly. "Bad men came. I couldn't stop them." Leeway nodded slowly. "I lost family too, long way from here. I come for better life, but they lied." Thaddius looked at her. "I'm sorry," she smiled sadly. "Not your fault. But it's my land now, my chance. Maybe I couldn't save my own, but maybe I can do something right this time." Leeway looked into his eyes. "You already are." The next day, two of the girls found an old garden behind the barn. It was dry and full of weeds, but they began clearing it. Thaddius brought seeds from the shed. They planted together, side by side, hands in the earth. Laughter started returning to the ranch. Soft at first, like a baby's first breath, but slowly the sound of joy came back. One evening, Thaddius walked into the barn and found two girls sewing new dresses from old cloth. Another was teaching English words to her friend using a stick in the dirt. He watched from the door. His chest felt tight, but not with anger this time. With pride. They were survivors. Brave, gentle, strong. They didn't just ask for safety. They gave life to a place that had been empty for too long. That night, Thaddius wrote a letter to the sheriff in town. He didn't write often, but now he needed help. He asked for protection. He told the sheriff what was happening. He promised to stand his ground, but he also knew the law had to get involved. These girls didn't just need a place to hide. They needed justice. They needed a future. The next morning, he handed the letter to a ranch hand who sometimes brought supplies. "Take this to Sheriff Wells," he said, "and be fast." The man nodded and rode off. Now all Thaddius could do was wait and prepare, because deep down he knew Crenshaw and his men weren't done. They would come again, and this time there would be a fight. But Thaddius wasn't scared. He had something to fight for now, something worth protecting. Not just land, not just memory, but life, hope, and the courage of 10 broken strangers who made him believe again. The rancher who once hated outsiders now had something he never expected. Family. 3 days later, they came back. Just as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned orange and red, 6 riders appeared again. Dust rose behind them like a warning. They came slow this time, steady and full of purpose. Thaddius Witmore stood on the porch, rifle across his chest. He had been waiting. His eyes didn't blink. His boots were firm on the wooden steps. Behind him, the 10 Chinese women were hidden deep inside the house. The barn was no longer safe. This time, he would not let them run. Crenshaw rode at the front, the scar on his face more visible now in the fading light. His eyes were cold and sharp. "We gave you a chance, old man," Crenshaw said, voice loud in the quiet air. "We said we'd come back, and here we are." Thaddius didn't speak. Crenshaw moved his horse a step closer. "We know they're here, the girls. They're ours, and you're going to give them back." "No," Thaddius said. One word. Strong. Clear. Crenshaw raised his eyebrows. "So this is how it's going to be? You step 1 foot closer," Thaddius warned, "and you won't be walking back." The wind blew soft across the dry grass. The silence was heavy. The air felt like it might break. Then one of Crenshaw's men pulled out his gun. Thaddius didn't wait. A single shot rang through the air, clean, loud, sharp. The man's hat flew from his head as the bullet sliced through it. He fell from his horse, rolling on the ground with a scream. He wasn't dead, but he was scared. The other 5 froze. Thaddius's rifle never moved from his shoulder. "You want to test me?" he growled. "Go ahead." Crenshaw stared at him. For the first time, there was doubt in his face. "You're protecting whores," he spat. Thaddius didn't blink. I'm protecting people, people you hurt, people you sold like animals. Their property, Crenshaw shouted. Not anymore, Thaddius said. Then the sound of another horse came. From behind the trees, Sheriff Wells rode in with 4 deputies. Their badges caught the last light of the sunset. Evening, gentlemen, the sheriff called. Heard there was trouble brewing out here. Crenshaw cursed under his breath. Sheriff Wells stopped beside Thaddius. Got your letter, Witmore. Looked into your story. Found out a lot. These men are wanted in 3 counties, slavery, assault, kidnapping. He turned to Crenshaw. You're done. Crenshaw reached for his gun. But it was too late. 2 deputies drew faster and shouted, Don't! Crenshaw froze, hand half raised. Drop the gun, the sheriff said. One by one, the men dropped their weapons. Crenshaw last. His face twisted, with hate. The sheriff stepped forward and took his pistol. You'll be spending a long time behind bars. The deputies tied the men's hands and helped the wounded one back onto his horse. The law had come. Justice had come. Thaddius let out a long breath. It was over. Inside the house, Leeway watched from the window. Tears filled her eyes. She turned to the others. They are safe now, she said softly. We are safe. That night, the women cooked a meal for Thaddius. Rice and vegetables. Simple, warm food. They used herbs from the land and added soft smiles to every bite. They all sat together around the table. Thaddius didn't speak much, but he listened. He watched. They told stories from home, stories of mountains, rivers, and small villages. They laughed softly. Some cried, but no one felt fear anymore. Later, when the stars came out, Thaddius walked out to the porch. Leeway followed. You saved us, she said. No, he replied. You saved me. She didn't understand right away, but she saw the truth in his eyes. I was dead inside, he said slowly. Since I lost my family, I felt nothing. I hated the world. I hated people. But you opened your heart again, she said. He nodded. You helped me remember who I was, who I want to be. The crickets sang softly in the grass. The moon was high. What will you do now? Thaddius asked. Leeway looked up at the sky. I don't know. Maybe we stay for a while. Work. Build a life. You're welcome here, he said. All of you. Tears welled in her eyes. We never had home before. Maybe this can be home. He nodded again. Maybe it can. Weeks passed. The garden grew green with vegetables. The chickens laid more eggs. Laughter returned to the ranch. Real laughter. Strong and bright. The 10 women stayed. They built small cabins with Thaddius's help. They planted roots in the land. In time, other women who escaped came too. They found a safe place here. A place of second chances. People from the nearby town started calling the land something. New Hope Ranch. Thaddius never asked for thanks. But every morning when he saw the women walking free in the sunrise, he smiled. The man who once hated outsiders had become something better. A protector, a shelter, a father to the lost. And in giving others a new life, he found one too.